Hello there, and welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Returning to Carlito's Way from 1993. What a pairing. Brian De Palma, one of my favourite directors, and Al Pacino, enough said. I can remember when this film came out in 1993. It was a major event because it was the reunion of those two legends 10 years after they'd made Scarface. Which was great timing, I think, because I think by then Scarface was beginning to be reassessed. Upon its release, it had been panned. It was so controversial with the violence, the swearing, the length of it, the bloated cocaininess of it. But it was starting to be reassessed, like I said, and starting to become recognised as a major cult classic, which was fair at the time. So Carlito's Way felt like a really interesting companion piece to Scarface, I think. But I do think the two films actually are like mirror images, because Scarface is a lot more about ambition, ego, and the rise of Tony Montana, so it's about the way up. And Carlito's Way is about the way down, about a man who's really already lived that life, become a legend, and wants to escape it and leave it behind. So even though there are lots of similarities, I think there are some key differences as well. What happens in the film? Well, we start off in the courtroom and, I'll step that back. We don't start out exactly in the courtroom. We start out with Al Pacino lying on the ground, ruminating on what's happened, and I'll come to that later. But then we go off to the courtroom, and after serving 5 years in prison out of a possible 30 for drug offences, among other things, Carlito Brigante is released back into the streets of New York. I should say that this film's set in 1975. But this isn't the same Carlito who presumably went into prison in 1970, because he's older, he's wiser, he's sick and tired of the life that led him to go to prison, and this criminal world that gave him the status and the respect on the streets really doesn't appeal to him anymore. And it's not just talk. He fully believes that. He wants to leave it all behind. And later in the film, we hear that he's got a new dream, which is very simple. Wants to save $75,000, leave New York behind, and move to the Bahamas, where he can co-run a legitimate car rental business, of all things. So Carlito just thinks, if I can stay out of trouble long enough to put together 75 grand, I can reinvent myself. The problem is that, of course, Carlito's past refuses to let him go. His old friend and lawyer, David Kleinfeld, played by a mesmerizing Sean Penn. He's the lawyer who finds a technicality to get Carlito out of prison. And Kleinfeld's become very successful while Carlito's been away, defending other mob guys for the most part. This has given him a little bit of a false sense of security, a little bit of overconfidence. Kleinfeld is very intelligent and no doubt connected, but he's starting to use some pretty massive amounts of cocaine, fueling paranoia. He's still very ambitious, and he's surrounded by a lot of dangerous people. Now, Carlito recognizes that he owes Kleinfeld a debt, but he's also trying to stay away from the nefarious side of life that landed him in there. But he's a very loyal guy. He's from the streets, and that's where loyalty really counts. So Carlito, at Kleinfeld's urging, takes a job managing a nightclub which Kleinfeld has a major interest in. And Carlito doesn't know anything about managing a nightclub, but he just wants to do it for a few months to bank the $75K and move on. Also, while he is taking those first steps in managing the nightclub, he reconnects with Gail, his former lover. She's also trying to build a new career as a inverted commas dancer. She's not the dancer that the type. She's not doing the type of dancing that Carlito thinks. And there's a funny, I thought it was funny, part in the film where acting on a tip from Viggo Mortensen, Carlito goes down to a rather salubrious nightclub, and realizes Gail is now a topless dancer. Very good topless dancer, but a topless dancer nevertheless. Carlito does see Gail as part of the future he wants, however. He's obsessed with her. He just wants a normal life, a relationship, and a chance at redemption. Sound familiar? Viewers of Thief, Heat, a few other films too that we've talked about. But anyway, while he's been away 5 years, isn't that long, but in 5 years, the criminal world has changed massively. There's now younger, more aggressive figures like Betty Blanco from the Bronx, who do not respect Carlito's reputation. And Carlito finds himself almost an anachronism, a dinosaur, a stranger in his own world, and he doesn't really belong there anymore, but he can't escape it. He's kind of stuck. The tragedy here is that Carlito Brigante is, for the most part, trying to do the right thing. Unlike Tony Montana from Scarface, he isn't chasing power. He isn't trying to build an empire. He just wants another chance. He has actually learned his lesson. Sadly, though, every decision he makes to protect himself and the people around him brings him closer to the life that he wants to leave behind. So, really, behind all the gloss and the action and the usual things you find in a Brian De Palma film, we really get down to one question: can someone really escape their past? Backtracking to 1993, when I first saw Carlito's Way, I was 21 years old. This film was major league for me. It was magnetic. When I think about it now, pretty much everything about this film connected with me. I liked that it was, obviously, it was Pacino again, back in a major gangster role, just when I was starting to think that I'd never seen him in a contemporary, well, not a film set in contemporary times, but a current film that was coming out that I'd be able to anticipate and then see with him in a major gangster role. By that time, I'd seen the Godfather films. I'd seen his other seminal films like Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon, Scarface, of course. Sea of Love by then as well, the comeback movie. And this one was a point of difference. It was mid-70s New York, so it was a little bit later than The Godfather Part 2. And I should mention Godfather Part 3. I'd seen that by then as well. The Puerto Rican influence, again, was a slight point of difference, which was intriguing. I was keen to see this changing criminal world, how that would play out. And by then I knew enough about Brian De Palma movies too to know that this was going to be something exciting and interesting. So I thought it might be one of the last times I'd get to see Pacino in this kind of role. And it played out that way. When I came to see the film, there was something really appealing about the Carlito character. Just the style of the man, that black trench coat, great haircut, and the whole look of Pacino. The beard really works for me. That close cut beard, I guess signaling a Latino influence, maybe. Cuban heels. But it was really the confidence and the toughness that he brings. I mean, again, it always amazes me the way Pacino, who's a tiny man, can intimidate guys 2 and 3 times his size. Especially, I love the way he gives it to the young punks that are trying to challenge him. And for me at 21, I guess living out some uh, not fantasies, but living in this world for a little while was really alluring. So when I saw this film the first time on VHS, I loved it so much that I gave it the ultimate VHS era compliment. That was to hire a copy from the video store, cover the little copy protection gap with sticky tape, make my own copy, and then I'm good. I'm set. I can whack it in any time. Believe it or not, this was a very satisfying feeling back in the day. That's how much this film connected with me. Um, there's more to it though than just Pacino and De Palma and the subject matter. By that time, I was a big Sean Penn fan, especially from films like Colors, State of Grace, Bad Boys, not the Will Smith one, of course. Bad Boys, the 1983 version. Just his persona, his the seriousness which he took of his craft. More than that, though, he'd gotten into directing around that time. He'd done The Indian Runner a couple of years before, which I found to be a really interesting film too. But I was hearing rumors that Sean Penn was getting sick of acting and just wanted to concentrate on directing, and that was a concern for 21-year-old me. So seeing Sean Penn acting with Al Pacino in a Brian De Palma film about Puerto Rican gangsters and cocaine was really appealing, and then watching the film and seeing his manic performance was really exciting. And I think watching this film again has really shown me more than anything what the difference is between watching a movie in your early 20s and watching one in your early 50s. At 21, I was really attracted to the style, the danger, the mythology around these kind of guys, the cool factor. Now I see a much darker film, a much gloomier film, a film really about regret and sadness, which I really didn't see the first time around. All right, Al Pacino as Carlito Brigante. I said before that by 1993, Pacino had really had, and this was really a thing back then. He was into his second career. Travolta was about to do that the year following with Pulp Fiction. James Caan had come back in the late 80s after a 4 or 5 year absence. Pacino had taken time off. I think for most of us after Scarface, but technically not until after Revolution in 85. And he'd gone and done a lot of stage work for those 4 years before Sea of Love tempted him out of retirement, semi-retirement. I don't know what you want to call it. But anyway, he was back and he was bigger than ever because he did Sea of Love, but then he did Scent of a Woman in 1992, wins the Oscar. You can come to your own conclusions about whether he should have won the Oscar that year. He missed out in the 70s, how many times? But anyway, he was on a high, and he was massive again, popular. And this performance is really interesting because I know that there are lots of parallels to the universe of Tony Montana from 1983. But it's very different, actually. Carlito is much older. He's more reflective. He's, dare I say it, smarter. Hasn't had to... he probably didn't have as tough an upbringing as Tony. Literally killing people to get out of Cuba. He's tired. You can see it. Those Pacino bags under the eyes aren't just there for show. This is the perfect character to have those. And Carlito's, he's finished conquering the world. He just wants peace. And Pacino does a really great job showing a man trying to become a different version of himself, a quieter, uh, more reflective version of himself. I did notice a slight issue with the accent in this one. It comes and goes a bit. Starts out pretty strong, but there are scenes, especially with Penelope Ann Miller, where I think it sort of completely disappears, and we just get the Pacino accent. Doesn't ruin the performance, but occasionally pulled me out. It didn't hold together as much, I think, as the Tony Montana accent in Scarface, but that's a minor glitch. Really strong performance from Pacino. Sean Penn as David Kleinfeld. What a guy. By this time, Sean Penn had obviously built a reputation as one of the most talented actors of his generation. But he'd been in the news for assaulting cameramen as well, for being married to Madonna, for hanging around people like Robert De Niro and Jack Nicholson in particular. He was becoming royalty, acting royalty, Hollywood royalty. Look at the films he made coming up to this as an actor. I'm not going to list all of them, but the ones that I really liked. Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982. Just a classic performance as the all-time stoner. Bad Boys in 83. Fighting Against the Essays in Juvie. That's a great film I want to watch again. At Close Range with younger brother Chris and going up against another Chris Walken, in a typical Chris Walken performance. That is a great movie. Madonna was involved with some of the music. Great songs in that too. Colors in 88 with Robert Duvall. A Dennis Hopper film. I mean, what more do you want? That film's been a bit tarnished over time. I still think it's great. Casualties of War in 89, also with Brian De Palma. So there's a little link there. State of Grace in 1990 with Gary Oldman, amongst others. Ed Harris as well. That is a really good movie. But around this time, 1990, he starts to move behind the camera, and we see another side of Sean Penn. Indian Runner in 91. What an interesting film. Viggo Mortensen's in that. I think, was it David Morse? I haven't seen it for a long time. But the most interesting thing for me was a reflective performance by Charles Bronson. And I really want to circle back to that film. He went on and did some other really interesting films, The Crossing Guard in 95 and The Pledge in 2001, both with Jack Nicholson. Both flawed but interesting films. Into the Wild in 2007, which is a really great film. A movie called The Last Face in 2016, which I haven't seen. But he was really... he also... I do want to give him a shout out for The Game in 1997 with David Fincher. He plays a supporting role in that with Michael Douglas. That is a banger of a movie. Anyway, his performance in this film... Sean Penn's had some strange roles over the years. There's that one movie, and I can't remember what it's called, where he kind of has a gothic look. I haven't seen it, but it looks quite unusual. He's a really brave actor, but this is... I still think this is one of the strangest and most memorable performances. Playing a Jewish lawyer, he's really sweaty. He's really paranoid and frantic. I'm not sure there's been many better cocaine performances. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Sean Penn was on cocaine when he was filming this film. I mean the way he depicts Kleinfeld, who is using a hell of a lot of cocaine. He's sweeping it up from that desk, a bit like Tony Montana did in 1983. He doesn't have a Mount Vesuvius there of cocaine like Montana did. But for an upstanding man in the community, well, that's what he's trying to portray. He's getting through a lot of nose powder, and he's great at admitting that insecurity, that things are starting to get on top of him. He's making some very bad decisions with some very dangerous people. He's losing control, but he's pretending he's still the smartest person in the room, and he's got these connections. He's starting to provoke fights in nightclubs that he really can't back up, even though he starts carrying a gun around. He's becoming a danger. And when you add Benny Blanco into the mix, played by John Leguizamo, I always have trouble with that name. And he's fantastic in this film, by the way. He's obnoxious. He's an upstart, and he needs to be to make this film work at all, because he's integral to the plot. He's starting to challenge Pacino, and Benny Blanco and David Kleinfeld clash over a very attractive young lady that works in the club, that's taken a liking to Kleinfeld. And the scene where Benny Blanco approaches Carlito's table with Kleinfeld is a turning point in the film, because Kleinfeld pulls a gun and you realize there's no turning back. Steps have to be taken. They are. And before you know it, Carlito's dragged back into the world he wants to escape. But anyway, back to Sean Penn. I think it's a completely manic, off-the-wall performance. He looks like he's having a lot of fun in the role. He's nearly unrecognizable, the way that he's done up with the receding hairline, the frizzy hair, the suits, the glasses. It is now one of my favorite things about the film, Sean Penn's performance. All right, now on to Penelope Ann Miller as Gail. At around this time, she was starting to come up as a potential major Hollywood leading lady. She'd been in some films that got a fair bit of notice. Biloxi Blues in '88 with Matthew Broderick, still basking in the wake of Ferris Bueller's. That was a pretty good film from my recollection. Awakenings in 1990 with De Niro when he wins the Oscar. I think he wins the Oscar. Excuse me. Kindergarten Cop, the same year with Schwarzenegger, a much loved film. The Freshman in 1990, again with Broderick. Other People's Money with Danny DeVito. So she was sort of, she was getting to be well known. Her name was recognizable, and she makes this film. I really don't think she works. It's not as catastrophic as Sofia Coppola in Godfather 3, but I just never completely believed the chemistry between her and Carlito. She just feels too cautious and conservative for someone that Carlito would risk everything for. I realize that maybe De Palma's looking for contrast, that her white bread look maybe is something different to Carlito, but then again, she's a topless dancer. She's not throwing out enough sparks for me in a cinematic film like this. This film is not a drama so much. It's a Brian De Palma companion piece to Scarface. It's not dissimilar to the tone of The Untouchables, or anything else that Brian De Palma has done. He is a cinematic director. He is not even like a Scorsese who can play more straight drama, if you know what I mean. And I just don't think she's up to the task. I think in a Brian De Palma film, you really have to be tweaking your personality. You really have to be going all out a bit more. Michelle Pfeiffer was able to do that enough in Scarface, for example. Um, I was thinking, that in 1993, some other interesting alternatives, which I would have liked to see a lot more, would have been Sharon Stone, maybe making this instead of Sliver. Gina Gershon, I've always loved her as an actress. A couple of years before Showgirls, she would have been a great choice. I think she could have carried this role off with some bravado, and would have made a great pairing with Pacino. Even Annabella Sciorra, I think, could have been fantastic in the role as well. But I think any one of those three could have brought a bit more danger and probably chemistry with Al Pacino. Like I said, I don't think it's fatal, and I don't think she's as bad on this rewatch as what I remembered. So maybe she's growing on me, but I still think it is a bit of a weak point in the film. On to Brian De Palma. By this time, he was ensconced as a legend. We don't have to go through all of them, but Carrie, Dressed to Kill, Scarface, Untouchables, even Raising Cain the year before, is a very imperfect film, but it was a really enjoyable film, is my recollection. So he was still a major director. His name carried gravitas. He still has this Hitchcock influence for sure in this film. There's moments of suspense, but it's Hitchcockian style suspense. We know, well, I kind of get the sense that it's a movie. It never feels real. The scoring, the camera movement, the glossiness, the cinematic performances, everything is like it's on cocaine to me, including the railway station finale. Another classic De Palma set piece. He always has them. The elevator scene or the museum in Dressed to Kill, the fireworks, or even the start, the car crash, the car accident in Blowout. Lots of moments in Scarface. Obviously, the Untouchables, train station, pram going down the stairs. It definitely springs to mind in the various happenings in the train station here. I just think that De Palma's always been brilliant at transforming ordinary locations into suspense arenas. I can't put it any better than that. However, I do think now, after having watched this film a bunch of times, I do wonder if he missed an opportunity here for something truly great. He's got Pacino. He's got Penn. He's got a great story, great characters. He's got himself, his own abilities, which always brings something different to the table. It just stayed for me as a cinematic experience that I can appreciate, but I think it could have been something a bit more emotional, a bit more of a crime drama instead. I think it still could have been, it still could have had enough of De Palma's touches to let us know that it's his film, but I think he could have just made this a little bit more dramatic. But it's just my take. Lots of things work for me, though. Pacino works. Sean Penn's performance works, just because it's quite different and it's entertaining. The visuals are always going to work with De Palma. I think he captures the era really well. I love the club. The club reminds me of the club that Tony Montana and Manny spend a lot of time at in Scarface with Robert Loggia. The New York atmosphere is captured really well. The locations look great. The contrast with Scarface is great. I think it makes it interesting, that point of difference, like I said at the top. It's coming at it from a different angle, and that's fine. But too many things on this, well, a few things on this rewatch didn't work for me. The Gale relationship never fully connects. I don't know whether I can't put my finger on whether it's Penelope Ann Miller, the way the character's written, or just the lack of spark between them, or the unlikeliness that they'd be together. And when I think of those other three actors in Stone, Gershon, and Sciorra, or plenty of others I could think of too that maybe had a bit more energy in this time in the culture, I think maybe might have worked a bit better. The other thing, the flashback structure does not work for me, because I know from the get-go that he's likely dying. I mean, I've seen the film a few times, so I know what happens, but in retrospect, having him philosophizing at the start, likely dying, just removes suspense from the film. And especially on the rewatch, you're knowing that you know that he's dying, even if you can't remember whether he does die or not, which sometimes I forget. It just takes any suspense away. And the other thing, I'm not a fan of his voiceover in this. It's too resigned and sort of jaunty. No, not jaunty, but it's sort of, oh, well, whatever. That's the way it goes. I just can't see that would be what Carlito Brigante would have been thinking after getting a second chance at life, being screwed over really by other people's bad decisions. The only thing that he does wrong in the film is stick to being a loyal guy, a stand-up guy, if you want to put it that way. So I mean, De Palma does create like an old school kind of atmosphere by having this weary narration, but I just think it's at the cost of some tension and real dramatic tension that could have been created. So anyway, where does this one fit? I think it's a date film. It's De Palma. It's cinematic. It's lively. It's entertaining. There's no real laughs in this film. That's the other point I want to make. Scarface had some genuine laughs. Watching Manny, clown around on Miami Beach, or just the dynamic between Manny and Tony. There was a lot more optimism in that film. But I still think it's Pacino, it's Sean Penn. There's a love story. There are enough sparks in this film. You're going to have an opinion on this film when you come out of it. You're not just going to go, oh, well, that was that. What are we going to do now? You're going to love this film, or you're going to, maybe it's not going to resonate. You're going to have an opinion. I do think it's a hangover movie as well, because it's De Palma. You can just zone out on the visuals and the style and the entertainment factor. It looks fantastic. The performances are interesting. It's not demanding too much. It's not really about anything deeper apart from loyalty, maybe. So I think it works on both of those in particular. So I think I've got quite a few final thoughts here, but the biggest difference for me between Scarface and Carlito's Way is that Scarface is even more excessive. It's another 40 minutes long, but it's got a fair bit more energy and pizzazz. De Palma's 10 years younger. He's really reaching for the stars with Scarface. I know when I talked about Scarface, I said it was bloated, and it is, but it still has more heart than this. Because of that rising of Tony and Manny, the relationship with Frank. I mean, it's got Robert Loggia just acting like a maniac for one thing. Michelle Pfeiffer looking great early stage and changing it up a bit, getting out of that Ice Queen persona. But Carlito's Way starts at the opposite point. He's damaged, and I don't want to say he's boring now, but he wants to go straight, and that's interesting. But I think the film should have been more a serious drama, not so much a stylish cinematic experience. Um, I do wonder, maybe I'm sort of saying, was De Palma the right guy to make this story? What if Scorsese had made it? What if someone um, with a more literal look at, because I think it was based on two novels. I know there was a screenplay written, but it was based on two different novels. I wonder, in the hands of another director, do we get a really gritty kind of, I don't know, film, more like Donnie Brasco maybe, or something else. I don't know. I'm not sure. I just think it was a slight missed opportunity from my, 50 plus years eyes now. So my final wrap up is that it is a stylish and entertaining crime film with some outstanding performances. Pacino gives Carlito a lot of dignity and regret. Penn, one of the most memorable performances of the first half of the 90s. Brian De Palma's always watchable, no matter if the film works or not. I just think on this rewatch, it really showed me how differently I see films at different stages of life. So at 21, I couldn't stop raving about this film. I really, and even not that long ago, I thought this was maybe the masterpiece of De Palma's career. It's the one that's not talked about as often. Everyone talks about Scarface or Carrie or, some of the other ones, but was this the one really that's the best? Maybe I was thinking with that 21-year-old mindset because it was so cool and dangerous and slightly different. Now I really see the sadness and the inevitability and some of the little glitches maybe about the way that it's made that just don't resonate as much with me now. As always, the film hasn't changed. I have. It's always going to be a really important film in my history. I'm always going to have fond memories of it. I'm just not sure it's one that I'm going to return to regularly. Maybe I should look at it in another 10 years and see what I think. So anyway, still worth a watch. I still get a lot out of Pacino, especially in this one. But just maybe Carlito's Way isn't the masterpiece that I thought it once was. So that's it. That is my take on Carlito's Way from 1993. Hope you enjoyed that, and thanks always for listening. See you next time.